Hello, my name is Key, and I will be presenting on my older adult interview that I did with Amy. Let's go. So, the developmental stage of Erik Erikson's psychosocial theory that we chose was developmental stage 7. This is generativity versus stagnation. The span of time that this covers is a lot. It's basically older adulthood, adulthood, which would be from like 30, could be anywhere from 60, 70, really whenever retirement is the focus of that person's life. During this span, the focus of the person's life is parenting and community. So in generativity, the goal of this stage is to focus on community and focus on contributing to society and the world outside of yourself. So Amy did quite a few things during this time. She got married. She gave birth to 4 children. She went back to school. She had some marital struggles. She ended up getting divorced. She obtained multiple graduate degrees, and she solidified her career, all within a pretty short chunk of that time span that encompasses stage 7. So, as you can see from what I talked about before, there are a lot of challenges and a lot of accomplishments in Amy's life during this time. Some of the challenges were marital issues. She struggled a lot with bisexuality, erasure, the denial or willful ignoring of someone's bisexual identity. She had multiple pregnancies while in school and while working, and she also got a divorce during this time. Some accomplishments were that she achieved several degrees, found new communities, and became an active social contributor and educator. She also became a fierce mama wolf and amazing parent to her 4 children. So, there are a lot of different ways, actually, to look at the psychosocial crisis that happened during this time for Amy. What I determined it to be is overall a loss of community. And I'll go into that specifically, talking about losses, really, of communities throughout this time. And we'll go into that in more detail. I also want to address the biopsychosocial factors that Amy had to deal with. She, being born a woman, she was trained not only by society, but by her very conservative religious family, that her identity and her worth, both intrinsically and externally, was in being a wife and mother. Those were the ways that she could be a good person. She would have to be a good mother and a good wife. And there was not really any room outside of that to just be a good person. She also was bisexual, so her sexual orientation was unfortunately denied and or ignored by her family and that religious community that she was raised with. That's what I was talking about with bi-erasure in this context for how she was born and how she was raised with the community that she was born into. The psychosocial crisis that she had during this time span of stage 7, this adulthood time span, right? So, with her gender, being female, cisgender female, she, if you recall, she was going back to work, she was going back to school, so she was working, going back to school, and was married and having multiple children within a relatively short span of time. So her religious family community would praise her husband for being a devoted father, There were even folks who, just when he would take their kids out on the road, out for ice cream, out doing errands, whatever it may be, people would actually stop him and take pictures of him and proclaim that he was such a devoted, wonderful father, simply for being a man, being a father who was running errands with his children. So that was not only from her family and her community, that was also just socially. From her family specifically, she was criticized for abandoning, literally use that word, abandoning her children to work and go back to the school. This oppressive view and oppressive talk, abusive talk, mentality toward her went so far as to, when her husband had an affair, her family blamed her for his having an affair. When she got married at 30, she really wanted a big family. So she started popping out them kids. She was pretty much consistently pregnant through her 30s. She had 4 children, 10 years. That's a lot of kids in a short span of time. Her husband did not want to have sex with her while pregnant, which led to him not being sexually satisfied because he would not go to her for sexual satisfaction. He instead went outside of their marriage and had an affair while she was pregnant. They received shared custody of the children while she was consistently working and at school, and he was not working or at school, and they got the shared custody. So they both were equally responsible for having the children, but she was actively engaged in making money and preparing her career while he was not doing either of those things. Religion also comes into play in this psychosocial crisis, which is the loss of community. The community in which she was raised, she lost. She was not viewed by them as a good wife or a good mother, having gotten a divorce and being a woman who was working and bettering her life and setting up her career. She is also an atheist, so she couldn't go outside of the religion or the community in which she was raised to find community from a different religion because she is atheist. Additionally, getting divorced is often frowned upon in religion, so that potential judgment made it difficult for her to think about going into a community that is religious to find folks to be around. And she's bisexual and was absolutely refusing to deny that part of herself. Even though other people were denying it, she was not going to do that. When she married a man, her LGBTQ plus community rejected her as being straight. So not only did she have bi erasure before she got married, but as soon as she got married, she was essentially erased from her community, from her what she thought were very, very strong friendships. She was now excluded from that community because she was seen as being straight. And this is even more solidified when she got pregnant and became a quote-unquote breeder. A lot of what I see Amy going through during the psychosocial crisis and with the loss of community, I see it as being happening because of a patriarchal perspective. So I wanted to look at it through a lens that did not include that as its dominant perspective. So radical feminism is the theory that a patriarchy exists, which is caused at all levels a male-focused and dominated world. And radical feminism kind of takes that, rejects that narrative, and puts all the things that the patriarchal narrative have cause and created and just kind of flips it on its head. So you can see that if Amy were a man, how she would be able to be a person. Not just a man, but a person. Whereas growing up as a woman, she was not able to be a person outside of her womanhood. So I wanted to look at it through this lens because I think what she did was incredible, and I think that a lot of the loss of community happened because of this patriarchal indoctrination that happens often within religion, definitely happened within her family and the religion there, and society at large. So looking at radical feminism and that lens on this psychosocial crisis, which is the loss of community that Amy suffered, you can see that a lot of these things happen not because she is a woman, but because of the patriarchal view on what being a woman is, this politicized, socialized idea of what the identity of being a woman is. So, as a pregnant woman, her husband would not engage in sexual activity with her. This led to sexual satisfaction for both of them declining and him having an affair. I'm not going to say it was the only thing that caused him to have an affair. We're just going to look specifically at that piece. As a working woman and mother, she also got the social blame for the dissolution of their marriage. Didn't matter that he was the one that had an affair because she is a working woman and a working mother, she got the blame, both socially and within her community and family. And then as the spouse with an income, somehow kind of flipping it on its head there, she was the one who had to pay alimony and child support. So her husband actually, or her current ex-husband, but her husband at the time, did not work, did not have school. She was working full-time. She was in school full-time. And when they got shared custody, he continued to not work or only work under the table to make sure that he would continue to get alimony and child support while she was working full-time and going to school full-time. So, psychosocial crisis resolution. This I love because having looked at the feminist theory and looking through that perspective, you can see so much of what she has accomplished, even through all of this oppressive, abusive language and treatment of who she is. And so she persevered in her work. This is how she resolved it. She persevered in her work and set up her career through obtaining higher education degrees. And when I say higher education degrees, I mean she got a master's in family therapy, a master's of education, a PhD in clinical psychology and human sexuality, a sex therapy certificate, and started her own practice. And this was with her fourth child, when she was pregnant with her fourth child. She did this all within the span of 10 years while popping out 4 kids. It's unbelievable. And working full time. So, because of all this that she's been able to do, her children have been able to grow up with an incredibly strong mother as a model, because she absolutely refused to buy into bi-erasure and to internalize that for herself. She's able to support her child who is bisexual. She's also able to support her other child who is transgender. She educates students on how to become excellent therapists and educators as a professor. She helps her clients achieve self-actualization and work through difficult times in their lives as a therapist. And she's active in her community and in speaking out against bi-erasure and in support of all under the LGBTQ+ umbrella. She really took all of the things that were put on her, and just like the feminist theory does, turns it on its head. And because of all that she had done with that, she was able to achieve all of this. I did want to take a second to talk about Erikson's limitation.